Okay, thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead and get started. Chase, if we could please get the next slide. The City of Tempe does comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other related authorities in all of our programs and activities. Any person who believes their Title VI rights have been violated may file a complaint by contacting the Title VI coordinator, and his contact information is on the screen. Next slide, please. Participants joining us are currently muted as we are recording the meeting, and the recording will be posted to the project website. Today's format is a short presentation followed by an open question and answer session. And if you'd like, you can submit written questions at any time during the presentation by using the chat function, and we'll come to them after the presentation. And I am now going to turn the meeting over to Chase Wellman, Principal Planner with the City of Tempe.
Great, thanks, Shauna. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chase Wallman, Principal Planner with Tempe Transportation and Sustainability Department. First, just wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your lunch hour to attend today's meeting. This meeting is for the College and University Grade Separated Crossing Project. It's our first round of public meetings. At this meeting, we will be presenting 4 preliminary design alternatives for a pedestrian grade separation project at the College and University Drive intersection. Those alternatives will include 1 pedestrian bridge alternative and 3 underpass alternatives. Before I hand over the project to the design team to review those preliminary design alternatives with you all, I just wanted to provide brief project background as well as introduce those design team members. So today, also presenting with me, we have Scott from Smith Group, as well as Jay from Bowman Group. Jay is our project manager with our design consultant team. So I'll be handing over the presentation over to them in a little bit, but before then, I just wanted to provide a brief project background. So this project really initiated in 2019 as part of an ASU commissioned study. And that study was exploring the feasibility of pedestrian grade separation at 3 high pedestrian volume intersections around the Tempe campus and within the downtown Tempe core. Of those 3 locations, the city identified the College and University Drive intersection as the highest priority with the biggest impact for us to pursue federal grant funding for the project. And that was really selected to address safety as well as traffic congestion, which are 2 of the most highly prioritized priorities that we see annually in our Tempe community and business surveys. So the College and University intersection was identified as that location out of the 3 from that initial study that should go on and pursue additional funding. So with that, in 2022, the city applied for and were ultimately awarded federal grants to complete the project's design and construction. As it's federally funding, we worked with ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation. They're the ones who administer the federal funding for the project. So this one specifically was from the FHWA, called Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. So with that, ADOT had a competitive process to select a design consultant, and ultimately Bowman was successful and awarded the contract to prepare final plans, specifications, and estimates so that we could bid the project's construction. With that, we kicked off the project in May of 2024, which included our initial utility research, data collection, but most importantly, this gave us the opportunity to talk to the immediately adjacent stakeholders in the project area, which included the 2 adjacent properties, which was Newman Center as well as Arizona State University. We wanted to speak to these stakeholders before developing our preliminary design alternatives so that these immediately adjacent property owners were really informing the design at a very early stage. So with that, this slide is showing some of the overarching themes that we saw in those stakeholder meetings. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this is something that we've heard through multiple stakeholders through these different organizations. So for Newman Center, this primarily revolved around 2 main themes, which was maintaining access to the Newman Center. A lot of the access for the church and the Newman Center as a whole is off of College Avenue. So they wanted us to be cognizant of that and preserve those access points in place with our improvements. Additionally, there's some external HVAC equipment and staircase that they wanted us to be cognizant of so that they could do ongoing maintenance. But also a significant concern was making sure that we were preserving the integrity of the architectural features. So this was protecting in place not only structurally the historic church, but also being considerate of the visual impacts that these improvements might have on the historic church from the street frontages. So those were the main themes as far as in the Newman Center. As far as ASU, these themes primarily revolved around focusing any of the proposed improvements west of the west side of Katy Mall. There are two significant landmark signage or monument signs that are on that south side of University Drive. They wanted to ensure that we were protecting in place those monuments as well as preserving the visibility of those landmark signage. Additionally, they recently renovated their alumni lawn. So we were asked to focus all the improvements on the west side of those features. Additionally, ASU wanted to ensure that all the proposed improvements would allow for good circulation, not only of pedestrians around campus, but also the significant golf cart traffic that ASU relies on as well. So those were the main overarching themes that really informed our design going forward. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jay to discuss further.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jay Yenerick. I am the project manager with Bowman. And as Chase just mentioned, this is a really unique location. First and foremost, we're trying to make this a safe location. There's almost 1,000 people that can go through here in a peak hour, and I think up to 9,000 or 10,000 in a day. So it's a very heavily trafficked area with just pedestrians and bikes. And so it's very busy. And so one of the main things is we want to improve the traffic flow so that conflict of vehicles and bikes goes away. And that'll help the turns be better. And then also safety for the pedestrians as well. We're going to make sure that it also blends in with the existing buildings around there. And so we're trying to find the nice balance between how it looks aesthetically as well as the functionality of it. And you'll see the Smith Group renderings later that show that. Also, we'll make sure that it's easy to find, easy to use through great signage when we do build this. Lastly, we do want to make it a potential landmark for Tempe and ASU. As I mentioned, the renderings that you'll see points where you could definitely imagine yourself wanting to be, hang out, even take some pictures after graduation or whatever it could be. So next slide. As I mentioned, it's really a busy area. It definitely provides a lot of major thoroughfare for the campus of the Katy Mall, and that distributes all throughout campus. There's a lot of student housing, multifamily coming in, as well as the transportation center to the north. And so people coming off light rail will get off there, or any other buses that are in the transit center, and walk down and go through this area. So obviously the Fulton Center is right there as well. So that provides a large population that just wants to cross the road just to begin with. So definitely a unique location in Tempe. Next slide. And so here's some of the buildings within the area that are the critical points: the Newman Center and the Fulton Center on the north. And that's what Chase had mentioned earlier about trying to get some early feedback from them. So that's why, since it's right on their corners, we want to make sure that anything that we build is in alignment with their vision for their facilities. Obviously, as you cross the street to the south, connection to Old Main and all the rest of the campus. Next slide. Here's some site photos of the area. Here's the church in particular. Definitely a nice job of landscaping and hardscape with the brick pavers. We'll maintain that look. The brick pavers, it's intended for them to be reused in any place that we dig them up. And we'll make sure that they get back as close as we can to the original spots. Well, not each individual brick, but in general, the look of it. And then we want to make sure that, everything that Chase mentioned earlier about the HVAC, the passageway to the back of the church is also maintained. Next photo. And here are some of the ASU stretches of this project, and looking up for both sides. The monument in particular was, as Chase mentioned, was a critical point. My understanding is it's one of the most photographed locations in the school, especially during graduations and different times to just show people their pride in ASU. And so anytime we would build, if we built on the east side, we also would kind of maintain this look and try to maintain all the vegetation that we can, and or replace it as is possible. Next. And then here's the Katy Mall. Kind of already mentioned the monuments. So there's actually two monuments, and the renderings that you will see, we kind of split the two, and we're on the west side of both monuments, staying away from the grassy area to the west, or to the east rather, and we try to make sure that this fits right into that narrow band. Next. Lastly are the utilities. This is quite a busy location for utilities. We know of 12 utility providers that are in the area. It's definitely a congested area. So should we be doing a tunnel, we will be working in and around all of these utilities. And we've already had contact with many of the utility providers to make sure that there's nothing that is that we need to work around. And so we're trying to split this window of opportunity to put a tunnel in. So it's definitely a busy location. And like I said, we've already been working with these utility providers to work with them and get things out of the way should they need to happen. Next. I think I'll swing it over to Scott for the rest of the presentation. Sure.
Thank you, Jay. We wanted to share a few context and precedent images. Specifically here, we have a few bridge examples that already exist along University. The first one here is the University Bridge, slightly to the east of our site. And this one has been there for a long time, gets a good amount of foot traffic. Next slide, please. And this is a newer bridge. This was built as part of the ISTB 7 building. To the right in the photo, there is a parking garage that is connected through this bridge to the education building on the left. This view is looking west towards our site. Given that we have two bridges, it's pretty rational to think that a third bridge would fit in along University here. We did receive some feedback from our earlier meetings with ASU stakeholders, and then the different commissions we met with, which were that people don't like to climb bridges. And I think other than the safety factor, most of the feedback we heard was that the tunnel was preferred. But that being said, during quieter times, nighttime or whatever, those tend to be a little bit iffier for people. They would rather cross the street. So if we go to the next slide here, we provided some precedent images of different projects that have tunnels incorporated into them. If we go to the next slide. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So this is at Northern Arizona University. It's just a rendering, so it hasn't been built yet. But again, this is a successful example, we feel, of a safe feeling underpass. You can see to the right, the ramp comes down. They've integrated landscape down into the carve into the earth, and you can see straight through the tunnel here, which makes it feel safer for pedestrians to see their destination and have clear vision through the tunnel. If you go to the next slide, please. This is an example down the street here in Phoenix. It's at the Biltmore Esplanade area, 24th Street and Camelback. Another good example of, a well-lit tunnel, they've incorporated art, some nice lighting in there. And again, you can see straight through the tunnel. So you're seeing your destination. It feels a bit safer. And finally, here we have one final example from Boulder, Colorado. Again, this is a nighttime view. It's well lit. You can see through it. So all those elements help underpasses to feel a little bit safer. Next slide, please. Okay, starting off with the 4 concepts that we've put together here. The first option, as Chase said earlier, is a bridge option. And I want to emphasize that the imagery we'll be sharing is very preliminary. Some things will not be shown. We didn't show for convenience the traffic signal at this intersection that will remain. There'll be an east-west crosswalk on the north side of University that will remain. Things like camera locations, shade opportunities, materiality, color, etc. All that stuff is very preliminary. So just wanted to make sure we are prefacing that as the imagery sometimes can be misleading. Next slide, please. So the first option here, the bridge, we're looking at a plan view, a site plan. So the bridge stretches across University there and hugs the west side of College Avenue. The bridge has to be 17-foot clear over University Drive, which means that we have nearly 300 linear feet of ramping to get accessible people in wheelchairs, et cetera, up on top of the bridge. So you can imagine that's a lot of ramp to try and incorporate in a small amount of area, especially on the north side of University, College Ave there. We don't have a lot of runway there to keep going north because of alleys and entrances to the church, which Chase had mentioned earlier. So we found a convenient way to tuck part of the ramp under itself there on the north and limit how much land we are actually compromising with the ramp on that side. The ramp on the south spins out to the west there in some of the right-of-way. There's an underutilized area of right-of-way there that we are able to use for the ramp. And another element, speaking to the placemaking and creating an icon there, we thought it would be neat to integrate a bleacher stair there with some shade provided so that pedestrians who are crossing could sit and have a moment of reflection and have a view to south to the campus. So if we go to the next slide here. Oh, and I guess touching really quick on the plans, you can see the smiley face moving here would be the circulation from south to north if they were taking the ramps. The green smiley face here is starting on the north side of University and crossing over to the south, taking the ramps. And the woman with the child here will be going up the stairs and crossing over the bridge and then down the bleacher stair to the University side. So if we go to the next slide here, this is a view looking to the northwest. You can see the bleacher stair, and the shade canopy there on the left side of the image, and how the bridge would cross over University and then land back down along the west side of College Avenue. Next slide, please. This is a view from University looking to the west. You can see how the bridge spans over the street, meeting that 17-foot clear, and touches down on the right side of the screen to the north of University there. And one more slide, please. And this is showing the ramp tucking under itself here along the church. Some of the feedback we got from different stakeholders was this was very visually obstructive to the church. So one note, again, speaking to the preliminary nature of these images, we can work going forward if this were the selected alternative to make things more transparent with the guardrail, et cetera, to help it not obstruct the church architecture as much. That's a very important historic building. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first 2 tunnel options here, options 2A and 2B, deal with a single tunnel that crosses from the south on ASU's campus over to College Avenue. The first here, if we go to the next slide, 2A remains on the west side of College Avenue there, so along the church. One of the big ideas with the tunnels, again, speaking to, making people feel safe here, is how do we carve down into the ground and minimize retaining walls that block views and provide sort of areas people can hide, things that make people feel unsafe. How do we minimize those retaining walls and slope grade, work with minimal handrails, those sorts of things to keep a visual connection from people up on the plaza level to people down into the tunnel so you can see where you're going. Another important thing that's really nice about this option here is that you get a straight shot through the whole tunnel. So again, you see your destination and you feel a bit safer. Chase, if you want to go ahead and launch, the smiley face here. The blue smiley face is if somebody cutting down the ramp on the north and then coming up the ramp on the south on ASU's campus. Yellow smiley face here will circulate the opposite way down the ramp, back up to the north, and then they have to double back to make it all the way up to grade there. So if we go to the next slide, we'll have an image, an aerial here looking to the north down College Avenue. You can see the ramps kind of cut back and forth through there and minimal handrails. You get a good view from there down into the space, which again, visual connectivity will help people to feel safe through there. Bringing natural, some desert landscaping down into there is a must for us. It will make it feel less concrete. It will help to provide shade down there, and just anything we can do to soften that whole experience up a little bit is going to help a lot. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is a view coming down the stairs looking through the tunnel. As again, you can see straight through the tunnel here, given that it's a straight shot. We brought some nice desert landscaping down in there, some trees for shade. It will be a nice experience to cross down into here. Another thing that we feel is a really nice opportunity is that we will be working with a public artist on this project. So integrating either murals or arting, light as art into these tunnels could help to encourage people to go down there, as it could be a really engaging experience. Next slide, please. This is a view on the north side, so on along the church here, looking south, down the ramp system that would lead you down into the tunnel. In front of us here, it's hard to see, but is a little bit more illustrated in the plan. There's a short stair that drops you down to the midway point of the ramp, so it's a little bit more convenient if you're coming from the transit center and trying to go under the street here. Anything we can do to encourage people to take this rather than crossing at grade is going to help in these designs. Next slide, please. So option 2B here crosses under University at a diagonal and comes up along the east side of College Avenue along the Fulton Center there. One downside to this, as you can see highlighted in those red lines there and the keynote there, is that we will need to realign College Avenue and shift it over to the west to be able to fit the stair and ramp infrastructure in. There's less right of way available on the east side of the street than on the west. So that is one downside. We have some bus traffic that comes through here that would have to make that turn, and then eventually farther to the north on College Avenue, curve back into its current alignment. But in terms of the ramp and stair and infrastructure on the south, it is identical to the previous scheme. So if we go to the next slide here, oh, sorry. Yellow smiley face here is going down the ramp on the north and crossing under, coming back up on the south. And then the blue smiley face will be reversing that journey. Thank you. Okay, so again, very similar sort of intervention on the south side, on the ASU campus side of things, but on the north side, you can see the tunnel here along the Fulton Center, the ramps and the stair that get you down to the tunnel. Next slide, please. And the fourth option here, titled option 3, confusingly, the Y tunnel was an attempt to really maximize the points of access for pedestrians on the north side of University Drive. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, both east and west sides of College Avenue will get a stair and ramp in this situation. This makes it a little bit more flexible. People that are already on the east side or west side of College Avenue won't have to cross over to access the infrastructure. And as you can see, the icons that are moving here will show circulation through. This, similar to the option 2B, because we're putting infrastructure there on the east side of College Avenue, we will have to realign the street. As you can see, this gets very tight with all of that infrastructure, 2 sets of ramps, 2 sets of stairs, et cetera. This is also more costly than either 2A or 2B. And the Y part of the tunnel, the branch to the Y, does create a blind corner in that tunnel that will make it feel less safe. So a few downsides to the Y tunnel, but a positive being is it creates the most efficient and accessible way of traveling if you're headed south across University. Next slide, please. So very similar here, the ramp and stair on the south side are identical to options 2A and 2B. And if we go to the next slide, please. Very similar image to what we saw for option 2A. Again, just a different sort of lighting approach. If this is a sort of colorful, lit, art installation, could be a very cool opportunity to encourage people to come down there to see it. Again, you can see straight through, so you do have some confidence seeing straight through the tunnel and up to the other side, but there is that little split off. It's hard to see in this image as it's small in the distance, but that is a bit of a blind corner there. Next slide, please. And this is the view, an aerial view on the north side of University looking south over College Avenue. You can see 2 sets of stairs, 2 sets of ramps leading you down. Again, a bit more flexible in this option. Next slide, please. So we put together some precedent imagery here of different sort of art and lighting approaches, things that will make the tunnel, and to encourage people to go down into the tunnel, but also make it bright and feel safe. Is it a mosaic on the ceiling of the vault? Is it light as art itself, color changing things, etc.? Also the idea of how we're lighting the ramps, the landscape, and those on the south side of University, where we do have a little bit of landscape there, could be quite elegant to emphasize that landscape while providing an appropriate amount of light on the walking surface itself. Is there opportunity if we're carving down and casting concrete down there to light some of that concrete and provide texture and tactility? And then the bridge itself, could be quite iconic if it were lit at night. So next slide. And finally, here we have some landscape character. Again, the idea of how we're bringing some desert and some planting, some softness down into the ramps and the tunnels and stairs that help to soften it. And we have we're going to have a lot of concrete retaining walls around the perimeter. How do we provide texture and tactility, create some interest there? And then again, if we ended up with a bleacher stair, that image in the middle there is a nice example of how you might integrate just small little pockets of a plant here or there to kind of break up the monotony of a big concrete stair. So I believe that's the last slide I have. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Scott. So this slide is really reviewing the public outreach that we've had to date. So as we talked about before, one of the first things that we have identified was meeting with our immediately adjacent stakeholders. So that was prior to going to the commissions that are listed here. We reviewed these same materials with the Commission on Disability Concerns and got their feedback. with Tempe's Transportation Commission, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission. Of course, we're here today at our first public meeting. We will also be presenting these same materials, the same presentation this evening in person at 6 p.m. at the Tempe Transportation Center. With that, we will have the public comment period open for 2 weeks. So we please encourage you to share the survey as well as take the survey, which is available on the project webpage, which is tempe.gov/college university crossing. From all the feedback that we received from the stakeholders, from our commissions, as well as this broader public outreach that we're doing currently, we're going to provide all of that feedback and the presentation of these preliminary design alternatives to City Council in November, where we'll be seeking a recommendation on a preferred alternative out of these 4 at that City Council meeting. Beyond that, we will be going back out again to our commissions, as well as hosting broader public outreach, and that's anticipated early 2025 through mid 2025. And that will be to present a preferred alternative that we refine the design based on all this feedback received today and prior. With that, we anticipate being complete with the project's design in the later part of 2025, with construction anticipated in mid 2026. With that, I just wanted to thank you all again for participating and providing your feedback and reviewing these preliminary designs for the College University crossing. My contact info is here, but we will have a Q&A session now that we will open up. Just wanted to highlight again the project webpage, tempe.gov/college university crossing. We will have our survey link there. Please take the survey so that we can record all of your feedback and present it to council later in November. And with that, Shauna, I think we're ready for Q&A.
Thank you, Chase. So please do put your questions either in the chat, or you're welcome to raise your hand. And I see we have one of each. So we'll take the question in the chat first. How do tunnels handle rain?
So I'll take that. And for the most part, the only rain that will fall into it will be captured by dry wells. And I think we're good. Right now, we're planning on dry wells on either side to capture the rain on this side, the rain on this side. So the intention is for no water to ever enter the tunnel itself. There'll be little slot drains in it right at the portals, and that way there's no water in the tunnel outside of whatever someone tracks through on their foot or whatever, or on the bikes. So the tunnel itself should remain dry and accounted for through the dry wells and little drainage systems that we'll put in place.
Thank you. David, did you want to come off mute? And Tim, you'll be next.
Yeah, one of the first things you said was that the point is to improve vehicle flow, and that's exactly what I said during our meeting. The way I see this is that you're reducing the sidewalks. I heard that you're going to be removing the trees, which increases urban heat and makes the pedestrian experience worse. And you're also adding stairs and ramps, which just takes so much more effort to cross the street when it's just not even necessary. So my first question is, are you going to keep the crosswalk at street level?
Chase, you want to answer this, or you want me to? I think we're exploring looking at that, but I'll let the city chime in on that.
Yeah, we will be preserving the east-west crosswalk on the north side of University Drive. Depending on the alternative selected, we're also reviewing maintaining a crosswalk on the opposite side of wherever an underpass, if that's a selected alternative, would be identified. We have not made an ultimate decision on that yet. We're still reviewing that, as well as our traffic engineering team. But right now we will be maintaining the east-west crosswalk. As far as the trees are concerned, we did identify that potentially those palm trees located on the northwest corner may have to be removed for depending on the alternative that's selected. However, we will be proposing new trees to be replaced inside of the project area where feasible. So we'll be looking to re-identify new trees as part of that. But at this stage, with this preliminary 15% level design, we haven't actually gone through any landscape sheets yet. So that's something that will be coming back in our next round of public meetings to present some of the more detailed landscape lighting and other things that aren't shown at this preliminary stage yet.
Okay, I think if this is really about improving the pedestrian experience, then we should definitely have the choice if we want to cross at street level. But my next question is, because it's illegal to ride in sidewalks, and you also have to ride with the flow of traffic. So I'm trying to understand how are bikes going to get from the street to the tunnel? Or, for example, I think you had a ramp. Can we go back to the bridge with the ramps on the going west on University? This is North on College, right?
And maybe show the plan view, Chase or Shauna. There we
Is that
go.
what you're looking for?
That's bridge.
Right, so those bicycles are going to be going west on University on the south side, right?
You're going up a ramp.
Are you talking about underneath the ramp, what kind of circulation we're gonna be maintaining?
I'm trying to understand because I see two lane. I'm just trying to understand which direction the bikes are going to be going because, like I said, you have to ride with the flow of traffic, and it's illegal to ride on the sidewalk. So I'm trying to understand how bikes get from the street to the ramps, and how do they get? So, for example, on this one, if I'm going riding my bike north on College, how do I get to the street where I have to ride because it's illegal to ride on the sidewalk?
Yeah, so with any of these alternatives, we're identifying them as dismount areas, but we will be keeping the existing condition of the bike lanes that are here today. So we'll be maintaining that northbound bike lane that you see on College Avenue in this photo, and then the existing bike lanes along University Drive. But it would be the existing condition as far as where you're allowed to ride your bike. It would be the existing condition today. Otherwise, if you want to utilize this, then it would be a dismount.
So if you remove the crosswalk, then that means bicyclists will have to dismount no matter what, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so in the intersection, they're required to dismount. So it'd be the existing condition today. So yes, they would have to dismount.
Okay,
It would be a similar condition.
okay. So then my last question is what type of material are you going to use for the hand railing? Because handrails obviously exist for a reason. And I'm concerned that this creates a situation where either I risk falling. I mean, me personally, I really do. I trip on stairs all the time. I have to have a handrail, and I'm going to get my hand burned if I touch a metal handrail. So what material are you going to use?
It's a great question. I mean, again, speaking to the preliminary nature of the designs, that's something that hasn't been thought through or selected yet. But we will be making those selections with that in mind, given that, you know, this is out there and much of it won't have shade protection. So
Well,
I think
yeah, my final thought is that I'm really disappointed with this whole project. I don't like it at all.
Thank you for your comments, David. Tim, did you want to go next? And then we have a couple questions in the chat.
No, my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay. So then the next question asks, is this project considered fully funded if the more expensive option is selected?
Yeah, right now we still haven't developed a final estimate. We have a rough order of magnitude at this preliminary stage. So although we've secured funding for the project's construction and have it programmed in our CIP, we anticipate needing to seek additional funding. So we're continuing to seek additional funding opportunities for that, as right now we just have a rough order of magnitude. We'll get a good idea once a preliminary our preferred alternative is selected and we start doing the material selections and specifying landscaping. But we do anticipate needing additional funding to close out the project's construction. So we will be continuing to seek grant funding opportunities for that.
And then a follow-up budget question, Chase, is Tempe residents responsible for any of the potential costs?
Yeah, so it would be partially funded through the local transit tax for Tempe. So there's required local matches with our federal grants. So we secure about 94% grant funding. And with that is the additional 5.7% required local match. So that will be part of the city's contribution, depending on the shortfall of the project. And if we are unable to get additional grant funding for that, that would also be identified through local sources. But again, we are pursuing additional grant funding opportunities and hope to be successful. We have been very successful in the past of getting additional funding for these large capital projects. And then ongoing maintenance would be specified through local funds as well.
Okay, next question asks, some college campuses with tunnels allow students to paint the tunnel walls. Will you?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's not something that we've explored to date yet, just at this preliminary stage. We do have public art identified as a future opportunity with this project. So we're going to be working with our public arts staff as well as their commissions to understand what public art opportunities, whether that involves community participation or a selected artist. That hasn't been identified yet, but something that we can consider as we progress in the design.
It's a great idea, Tom. Thank you for bringing that up.
Next question asks, was a scramble intersection ever considered? And if not, why?
My understanding is that there's been many studies and the scramble has been considered over the years. I think what I've always read, just doing research for this project, is that the levels of service for University, which is a major thoroughfare, was just level service F or whatever. So that's my understanding. Chase, I guess you can chime in too.
Yeah, I would echo that, Jay. This was considered, the ped scramble was considered as well, but with the project goals, it hasn't been identified as an alternative for this. A grade separated crossing was a preferred alternative.
And as a follow-up, the question was asked if the city was going to look at the data again related to a scramble here.
Chase, I haven't been getting.
Sorry, I'm having real troubles with my toolbar here. So yes, the data collection part of it, we are collecting data. There could be an opportunity for a pilot phase, which we would seek additional feedback on if that's a priority of our council or the community. But right now, even with the data that we've collected, this is still the identified preferred alternative for that. But there's always opportunities for us, and we continue to have those conversations about a potential ped scramble here.
Are there any other questions? You can raise your hand or put it in the chat. And then, well, again, the survey is live and that's on the screen in front of you at tempe.gov/college university crossing. And then again, we will have the public meeting tonight at 6 p.m. at the Transportation Center if you're interested in coming and talking to the team in person as well. Chase, I'm not seeing any other questions or hands raised. Was there anything else for wrap up?
No, thank you, Shauna. Please take the survey at tempe.gov/college university crossing. Share it broadly. We want to get as much feedback as possible so that we can present it to our city council in November. And with that, again, thank you for taking the time to participate. All these same materials will be available at that project webpage listed.